Blood, this is for your grade 11. This is chapter 30, section 5. So we already talked about the circulatory system, we talked about the blood vessels, and now it's about time we talk about the blood. So as you know, the average human body has 5 liters of blood, and blood is the transporting fluid within your body. It carries viral substances to and from different parts of your body. It's carrying the food, it's carrying the gases, it's carrying everything around your body. So what is your blood formed of? So this is the composition of your blood. It's mainly formed of plasma. Plasma is a yellowish fluid in which all the blood cells are literally floating. Then we have red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. We're going to talk about each of them, starting with the plasma. So first of all, we have the plasma. This is a clear, pale yellow fluid that makes up about 55% of the blood. It is roughly 90% water. Many types of molecules dissolve in plasma and can be transported throughout the body. These molecules include, of course, the amino acids, glucose, hormones, vitamins, salts, and waste products. Why is plasma important? Because the concentration of the molecules dissolved in plasma determines which substances will diffuse into and out of the blood that moves through the capillaries. Remember, many of the substances, they move only down the concentration gradient, and some other substances, they move into and out of the cells against the concentration gradient, and they require energy. So the movement of water, gases, nutrients, and ions between the capillaries and the cells is going to play a critical role in maintaining also homeostasis. The plasma proteins such as albumins, fibrinogen, and immune proteins also help maintain homeostasis. Albumin, by the way, is the same substance that is present in the egg white, and it is the most abundant plasma protein. Its main role is to stabilize blood volume so that the fluid in the blood does not leak out of the vessels. Fibrinogen is one of the clotting factors that works with the platelets to keep the vessels closed after injury. So, as for the plasma, it is responsible for the transmission of nutrition and the gases throughout your body, and by doing this, it also plays a very important role in homeostasis. The second part we're going to talk about are the red blood cells. The red blood cells, they form 40 to 45% of all the cells in the blood. The mature red blood cells are shaped like an inner tube with a solid center. They are produced from stem cells that are present in the bone marrow. As these cells mature, they get gradually filled with hemoglobin and lose their nuclei and other organelles. As they do not have nuclei, they cannot divide. So for you to know, your red blood cells, they circulate around your body for 120 days, and then they start to degrade. They just start to die. These dead cells, they are carried to the liver and spleen, which breaks up the cells and recycle them. The most important function of the red blood cells is to transport oxygen to the cells and carry carbon dioxide away from them. If the red blood cells are damaged, they cannot transport oxygen effectively. As we said before, in sickle cell disease, the cells, they are not circular anymore, and for this reason, they are unable to carry oxygen properly. Now we are going to talk about the white blood cells. The white blood cells contain no hemoglobin, and they are cells that are responsible for the defense of the body against infection, and they remove also any foreign material and any dead cells. We have different kinds of blood cells that defend the body in different ways. Some of them, they surround and ingest the microorganisms. Others, they produce proteins that act to destroy the microorganisms. But unlike the red blood cells, the white blood cells are not limited to the circulatory system. Some of these cells are able to pass through the capillary walls into the lymphatic system that we're going to talk about next session, and they attack pathogens in the body tissues. This is why the white blood cells are a very important part of your immune system. Then finally we have the platelets. The platelets are cell fragments, parts of cells that help form clots that control the bleeding. When you cut or tear a blood vessel, the platelets quietly cluster around the wound. At the site of the injury, the platelets form spiky extensions that intertwine into a complex net. As soon as there is a breaking in one of the blood vessels, as soon as you have a simple wound that is bleeding, the platelets, they go to this place and they start forming a mesh or a network in which through which they are going to close this opening. And then as they keep on doing this, they harden, forming a clot or a scab. At the site of the injury, we have the platelets that are going to come, and they are going to stimulate a series of reaction, which is the clotting reaction, which is a type of positive feedback. It is one reaction stimulates, the second reaction stimulates, the third reaction, until the whole clot is formed. One of the factors converts prothrombin, which is a plasma protein, into thrombin. Thrombin in turn is going to convert fibrinogen into fibrin. So each one of the factors that are present in the platelets are going to transform another one until a whole network is formed and a mesh is formed to close the bleeding vessel. Some people, they have blood clotting disorders. These blood clotting disorders, they mean that this person's platelets are not functioning properly, and as a result, whenever they have a small wound, this could be fatal. They could be bleeding to death. One of the most famous blood clotting disorders is hemophilia. Now we're going to talk about the blood groups. As you know, we have 4 well-known blood groups. The 4 well-known blood groups, they are A, B, AB, and O, and this is what is called the ABO system. Okay, the ABO system consists of these blood groups. Each of the blood groups has either an antigen and antibody. Antigen is literally a protein label. So the blood which has an antigen A belongs to the group A. But the blood which has an antigen A is going to have the B antibody. And accordingly, the blood which has an antigen B is going to belong to group B, but it's going to have an A antibody. The blood which has both antigens is group AB. And then finally, we have the group O. So blood with with antigen B and alpha antibody is going to be group B. If both antigens are present, it is called AB. In case both antigens are absent, the blood group is called group O. So each one has an antigen, which is the protein label or the name, and an antibody that it uses to respond to other blood groups. So by looking at this, we know that blood group A, their name or their label is A, and their antibody is B. So they cannot receive blood group B because their antibody is going to recognize antigen B and it's going to destroy it. They cannot receive group AB because group AB has the antibody B2. What can they receive? Either they receive blood from their own group or from group O. Why is it from group O? Because in group O, it has no antigens, it has no protein label. This is why we call group O a universal donor, because it has no antigen, it has no label, and it can enter into any of the blood groups without causing any reaction. On the other hand, because group AB doesn't contain any antibodies, it is called a universal recipient, because it can receive blood from any group without causing reaction. So blood group A has the label A or the antigen A and the antibody B. B has antigen B, antibody A. Both antigens are present in blood group AB and it has no antibodies. Both antigens are absent in blood group O and it has both antibodies. So blood group O is a universal donor because it has no antigens. It cannot be detected when it enters different blood groups. And blood group AB is a universal recipient because it has no antibodies that can detect different blood groups. That's it for the blood. and next time we're going to be talking about the lymphatic system.